USAA knows dynamic duos can save the day, like superheroes and sidekicks or auto and home insurance. With USAA, you can bundle your auto and home and save up to 10%. Tap the banner to learn more and get a quote at usaa.com/bundle. Restrictions apply.
LifeLock, how can I help?
The IRS said I filed my return,
but I haven't.
1 in 4 tax-paying Americans has paid the price of identity fraud.
What do I do?
My refund, though.
I'm freaking out.
Don't worry, I can fix this.
LifeLock fixes identity theft guaranteed and gets your money back with up to $3 million in coverage.
I'm so relieved.
No problem. I'll be with you every step of the way.
1 in 4 was a fraud-paying American. Not anymore. Save up to 40% your first year. Visit LifeLock.com/podcast. Terms apply.
Welcome to the 1905 podcast. Each week, Joe and I bring you our unfiltered takes on the highs, the lows, and everything in between, following the blues from Gate 13 of the Matthew Harding Stand. Let's hit the notes. Okay, it's a 1905 podcast first, because this is my post-PSG note, and actually the game is still going on. There's a few minutes left of the game as I record this, but to be honest, I don't think anything's going to happen in the next couple of minutes that's going to change the general vibe of this voice note, unsurprisingly. Couldn't be there tonight because my wife is away, and it's a rare night when I'm not at the Stamford Bridge for a big Champions League night, and I hate to say it, but I'm almost feeling quite fortunate. Final whistle has just blown. The referee sensibly not making us sit through any injury time at all, incredibly, and doesn't that sum up how everyone probably feels about that game. I guess the first thing to say is, let's hope that Trev is okay. That looked really, really nasty, didn't it, at the end? And let's face it, sums up what has been, it sort of culminates in just the worst 6 days that Chelsea could possibly have had. It's been a disaster from minute 70 of that game in Paris to today. Obviously, 3 defeats. Now 2 bad injuries, it looks like, to 2 of our Cobham boys in Reece James and Trevoh Chalobah. And, the season is on a tender hook, isn't it? It really is. Let's get into it then. Joe and I were chatting actually earlier today, chatting at lunchtime today about the game, obviously, tonight. And I think both fearing the worst and sort of fearing what happened. Joe said that he felt PSG wanted blood. I think that was the phrase that he used. Obviously wanted revenge for what happened last summer and would be out to score lots of goals. And I mean, in all honesty, they did that, but they could have had more, couldn't they? You kind of felt that once the second half, after about an hour, they sort of went, oh, we'll just ease off now. Let's no one get any injuries and do anything silly. But it was so easy for them. It was almost scary. I said that I just hoped it wasn't embarrassing. That was my feeling at lunchtime today. And let's face it, it was. And it could have been even worse. I'm going to say, I mean, it's obvious to say Chelsea needed a good start. To have any chance of even putting up a fight, we needed a really good start. And we had a disaster. It couldn't have started worse. The big call, obviously, one of the big calls was that Mamadou Sarr started. In fairness, it was something I called for. I thought he would be a good player to play with his experience against PSG, having played before. We certainly had to change something at the back. I think putting him and Hato both in was a big call, and it was a disaster moment for him. Misjudged the flight of the ball, get stuck under it, and yeah, terrible moment for him. The last man you wanted it to fall to, Joe's favourite man to say out loud his name, and 1-0 down, and you just knew from that point, and the life came out of the air, came out, the oxygen came out of the stadium, didn't it? You just thought, oh no. And then Caicedo, Chelsea, to be fair, rallied. They did rally. Caicedo, though, on the second goal, really poor. I think he's quietly having a really tough spell at the moment. He just looks, don't know if he's knackered, which could well be the case. He looks a shadow of the player that we saw earlier in the season. Really poor from him. And then it was just so easy, wasn't it, for PSG? Like, they go forward. Every time they went forward, they looked like they'd score. And again, brilliant finish. Again, we've seen that over the 2 legs. And it's worth calling out the quality of their finishing has been a joke, really. It's been unbelievable. And you compare it to what we've done in front of goal, it's men against boys, isn't it? But another good finish, and that was, game over. And you really are at that point, 15 minutes gone, thinking this could get really, really ugly. Chelsea did have half chances, I think. I mean, the numbers, by the way, are crazy. I think at that time of looking, which is right on 90, we had 18 shots in the game, 9 on target. And I think you look at that, if you hadn't seen the game, you'd look at that and think, oh, Chelsea put up a really good fight. We all know, having watched it, that the reality was very different. So many of those shots were powder puff. The keeper's going to come out with really nice stats, having made 9 saves, but in reality, most of them were chucked straight down his throat. He didn't have to work particularly hard for his clean sheet. And yeah, the lack of everything in that final third, lack of decision-making. The decision-making was poor. The ability to take on a man, it's never quite there, is it? When you compare it to the quality that PSG have, quality at the final ball wasn't great. And then the shooting, just everything a bit powder puff, a bit weak. And you compare it to what PSG are able to do, it's just not good enough, is it? And you look at what again, I don't want to go back into, but you look at where we've spent our money compared to PSG, for example, and you just think we are miles apart, aren't we? That Kvaratskhelia, I'm struggling to say his name as well, let's face it. You think the money that PSG spent on him is similar to what we spent on Jamie Gittins, and that in itself is laughable. The subs, I mean, there's going to be enough to talk about Rosenior, and I will go into Liam Rosenior in a bit more detail in a second. I think a lot of Chelsea fans, and he got a bit of stick in the stadium for the subs on just around an hour mark, effectively throwing the towel in and giving up. I'm a little bit torn on this one, because on one hand, it's probably sensible. You've got to get the ties over. If you can protect Palmer, Enzo, João Pedro, then obviously eventually Cucurella. There is a logic there, but it's just not a good look, is it? It's just not a great look for a club like Chelsea to basically be giving up. You can't see Jose Mourinho or Alex Ferguson or Pep doing it, can you? And obviously they weren't in those positions very often either, but it just doesn't quite sit right, I don't think. And I don't know, even if you do get a goal back and it's 3-1 and Palmer gets one, or 3, whatever, with Enzo Fernandez, it just there's a little bit of light there. Whereas Chelsea have come out of this with absolutely no credit, and yeah, it's tough. It's tough. A tough watch. Let's talk about Liam Rosenior then. I think it's going to be the headline. I think I'm not going to backtrack on the fact that I was fed up of Enzo Maresca, and I was fed up of the football. I wasn't enjoying watching my team, and I'm not going to change my mind on that. But let's face it, I think he probably would have fared better in some of these big games recently where we've seen Liam come up short. I think Liam Rosenior against Arsenal has made decisions that has made him look a little bit naive. I think against PSG, particularly today, thinking we could go toe for toe and really go for them, I think was seen to be a bit naive. And I have to say about Maresca, all his faults, when it came to those really big games, he would generally pull a surprise. He would generally have a game plan, and you generally see Chelsea at their very best in those games. Unfortunately for Liam, the games he has won so far, and he started really well, but they are games that Chelsea would expect to win and would be favourites in. He played some really good football along the way. My worry, and Joe alluded to this on the last pod, but my worry is that new manager bounce is fading. And I hate to say it, because I do like Liam Rosenior, but Graham Potter started really well at Chelsea as well. And people sort of forget that now. But if you look back to Graham Potter's first 10 or so games in charge, he started really well. For those who remember, we beat AC Milan twice, home and away. Had some really good wins at places like Crystal Palace, and we're looking good. Crystal Palace is obviously a huge coup, but generally our form was pretty good. He'd sort of turned things around, and then obviously it went horribly wrong. He also beat Dortmund, didn't he, actually? Potter. But it's just, you're looking at Rosinia now, and he looks like the man he is. He looks like he's not got a huge amount of experience at this level. He looks naive. The tie overall actually did remind me quite a lot of when we got absolutely smashed by Bayern Munich under Frank in 2020. So that was 7-1 on aggregate. And if you remember that one, it was 3-0 in the first leg at Stamford Bridge. We got very similar, actually. They were just too good for us. We got annihilated. And then away from home over in Germany, it was 4-1. And it had a similar feel where it was men against boys, with obviously quite a young, inexperienced manager, a very young team, that Chelsea team, obviously. And we just looked out of our depth. And we won the Champions League the next year. So there you go. There's something to hope for. But it was under an elite manager, Thomas Tuchel. And I think the question will continue to get asked about Liam Rosinia is he at the elite level that Chelsea need to be an elite team and an elite club? The thing you have to say about Rosinia as well is, we have talked about this before, but defensively we look so porous, don't we? It's so easy to get through us. Teams are scoring all sorts of goals against us. There's a lot of mistakes happening at the back, but that tends to start from an element of being disorganised and players panicking a little and not feeling like they've got enough support, which gaps open up and then mistakes are made. It's just not great. And I think it was funny because obviously when Rosinia was appointed, although we wanted to see Chelsea start to play a little bit more entertaining football, I think the first thing Joe and I said was, wouldn't it be great if manager came in and did a bit of a Thomas Tuchel and just made us hard to beat again, which is what Tuchel did. He just locked the door, just made us more solid. And then slowly and surely, we started to open up. The wing backs would start to get forward a bit more, and you started to sort of see the team that we became. But it started with, I think his first game was a really boring 0-0 draw at home, wasn't it, to Wolves? But it sort of set the tone, which was like, okay, we're going to be hard to beat, and then we'll work out how to play. We've gone the other way, really, under Rosinia. We've been entertaining, but easy to beat. And yeah, it's a worrying point. I'll finish with some final things. I mean, one thing, by the way, how annoying were the whistles in the crowd from the PSG fans? I don't know how that's a thing that's allowed to happen. I know it must be very hard to police, but the amount of times I thought the referee had blown his whistle and it was the PSG fans, but it was very annoying. I mean, the final thought is we have to dust ourselves down. We've got to dust ourselves down and do everything we can to not let our season get completely derailed. The body language of the players is really not good. It really isn't good, obviously, after what we've just seen with Newcastle and PSG and another couple of defeats at Stamford Bridge. The vibe doesn't look great. I'd say the international break, obviously after Everton, has come at probably a really good time for us. Gives us a bit of a chance to reset and reboot. But God, we could do with a good result on Saturday at Everton. And that is not going to be easy. But you know, the season's not over. It feels like it's over. I think we've all got this feeling. You just get that mood. Everyone's a bit despondent as fans. And it isn't over because we can still win the FA Cup. We can still get back in the Champions League. And that wouldn't be a disaster as a season. I've said that all along. But at the moment, it's really hard watching that Chelsea team play and think that the next couple of months are going to go how we want them to. And obviously with those latest injuries, like I started with, it's not a good place to be. I'll finish there. I'll hand over to Joe. And yeah, hopefully feel a bit better and livelier in the morning. But yeah, that was a pretty tough watch.
Good morning and welcome in. You're going to have to forgive me today because my throat is not the best and my voice is a little bit crackly and doesn't have a lot of power to it, so I will try and get through my note as best and as quickly as possible. Yeah, you join us as we have set a new record. That is Chelsea's biggest ever aggregate score defeat in the Champions League. And let's be honest, it could have been a whole lot more had PSG really, really wanted to turn the screw. I think that when Hakimi, well, by the looks of things, we don't know to this point, but he's either done some horrendous ligament damage, Trevoh Chalobah, or he has a broken ankle today, because the pictures look absolutely horrific. When that happened and Chelsea went down to 10 men, I think PSG just knocked it around and just basically knew the game was over. The crowd had left long before the Trevoh Chalobah injury. 3-0, it really was one of the most damning, alarming, disappointing, and damn right shocking things I've seen at Stamford Bridge for a long, long time. I have never seen the bridge empty with 30 minutes to go in a Champions League game like that. You literally heard the smashing of chairs the moment the third goal went in, and I didn't expect any different. I thought that if I go back a step and just say that I thought I'm not going to go through the game overly, because I just think that we don't need to relive that today. Everybody knows what's happened. You've seen what's happened. But I thought João Pedro was absolutely outstanding last night. I thought his work rate, his ability to hold the ball up and go past people, his finishing was just slightly off last night. But I thought that João Pedro's game was remarkable. I thought he came out of the match with an awful lot of credit, and the way that Chelsea and Liam Rosenior took off Cole Palmer, Enzo Fernandez, and João Pedro with half an hour or 35 minutes to go. I like Chris. I completely understand the sentiment. I've heard Liam Rosenior's quotes this morning and what he said about the game and why he did that. We all know why he did it. Everybody who's got a set of eyes knows why you did it. But that is where you just cannot wave the white flag like that. Chris is absolutely right. There are games where you do it, and there are games when you don't. And I think he would look back on that decision as a poor one. Chelsea were never going to beat Paris Saint-Germain. The reason and the strategy to take those players off is the correct one. I would be in agreement with you. If I was managing Chelsea, I'd be standing that sideline going, let's have those three off because it's the right decision from my point of view. But from a Chelsea fan's perspective and the way the game was going, you needed to show heart, you needed to show fight and spirit. If Chelsea had come back and lost that game 3-2 last night, that is a much different story that we're telling today. We're still out of the Champions League. We've still got our asses handed to us. But there is a word called pride. And I think that it's not used enough. I don't think a lot of players have. It's not a thing anymore. I don't think it's in everybody, but they have this pride about them. You have to show something to your supporters. You have to show something to yourselves and your teammates that you actually give a shit. And I don't think that Chelsea players turned up last night and didn't care. I don't think that's true. But I do think that there's something to be said for the way the modern game is. And that last night just showed me that not only are we miles and miles and miles behind Paris Saint-Germain and probably some of the other top clubs in Europe, but we have literally gone down with a whimper. And sadly, I think that's my biggest disappointment, is that we didn't show the heart and the fight that goes from the manager down to get back into that game and at least give the supporters something to cling on to. Because, Todd, you were in the ground last night. What on earth do you think is happening to this football club? Because the model and the projects that you and Egbali and the Winstanley brothers have have gone through and put us through in the last 3 or 4 years, this is what you're left with. I can't say any more on this podcast that if you change the goalkeeper and the 2 centre-backs every single week, this is the performances that you will get. I don't know how many times I can say it. I've been around football my entire life. Now, I'm not saying I'm the next Chelsea manager. I'm saying from a football standpoint, I know football and I know the repercussions of chopping and changing certain positions in that side. And the goalie and the 2 centre-backs are absolutely imperative to what the foundations of your team look like on a day-to-day basis, on a game-to-game basis. I know managers and new managers that would almost care more if a centre-back was missing than a right midfielder. It sounds mad, and it's not because I played in that position. It's purely because they are the rock. They are the people that get everybody going. It's a modern game. It's different now. People don't seem to talk as much. There doesn't seem to be as many kind of nasty bastards, let's just say that, around. But that was what it was my entire life. And to see Chelsea go from Sarr and Chalobah and Badiashile, Tosin and Fofana and Badiashile, it's just absolutely insane. It's borderline. It's messing with my head, and I don't mention it every week because I know that the public don't want to hear me say that every week, but I have mentioned it before. And it's got to the point where I just don't understand how a football club of our stature seems to think that just rotating players around like we're playing some kind of academy football where it doesn't really matter is the right thing to do. It's madness. Injuries, fair enough. I can understand that. If you've got long-term injuries to people, I really don't mind the fact that you have to do that. That's just part of the game. But Chelsea haven't really had this. And you can just tell this is coming from a situation where it's like we have a squad of players, so we must use every single player in the squad. We must make sure that nobody gets upset. Whatever happened to I'm playing the best that I should play? That's the way football has always been. And yes, you'll play League Cup games, you'll play low-key Champions League matches, you'll play Championship sides in the FA Cup like we've been doing this year. You get your chance in those games, if you're not playing and you're not in the team, to come and play and show what you've got. And if you play really, really well in those matches, do you know what? We might have a look at you in some of these other games. But if I've got 2 centre-backs who are playing the best football that this team needs and deserves, they stay in the side. Imperative. They stay in the team. I'm playing the best. I stay in the side. What does it say to somebody? I've had a really good game today. Even a young player. Josh comes in, has a brilliant game against whoever. The next week, you're out because we're going to bring somebody else in. Malo Gusto hasn't had a game for 2 weeks. He's coming in now. Oh, Malo, he played well last week. Reece is in now because Reece is the captain. He's going to come back and play your position. Oh, hang on. I found somebody else over here in the academy. He's going to come and have a game. It's a nonsense. It has to stop. And frankly, that part of the game is borderline atrocious, in my opinion. Not enough emphasis is put on the fact that keeping clean sheets is the foundations of everything else working. Your attacking players being as good as they are only works if your defenders can keep the ball out of the net. And you watch Chelsea currently, you look at Cole Palmer's reaction and João Pedro's reaction last night when we conceded. Enzo Fernandez was the same. And you see them going, boys, like, come on. Like, we can't do anything this end if you can't do your job your end. And why do you think the likes of John Terry and, you know, his era, Thiago Silva, they're so passionate about keeping the ball out of the net and keeping clean sheets? Because they understand football. They understand that's the reason you win games. You look at Arsenal now trying to chase down Chelsea's record for the least goals conceded in a season. These people care about not conceding goals. I'm sorry, but there's just not enough care and attention taken in that area of the field. And frankly, It's one of the saddest and most disappointing things about modern football. Everybody's chasing the XG and how many chances did we create and big chances, this and all that crap. How about just concentrate on, if we don't concede, we can't lose. That's been a staple since time began. Let's not reinvent football. It doesn't need reinventing. Okay, let's stop having 35 passes out from the back when 2 will do. We don't need to see this anymore. It's an experiment. It's been a 4-year experiment. We've seen it. We've got the T-shirt. It's done. Let's move on. Let's change it. Let's play the way that we want to play. Let's not play into the ideologies of everybody else. We're not Pep's team. Pep can coach that brilliantly well. We cannot. So let's play the way that we want to play football. It's a madness that you think that you can just take somebody else's strategic plan and say we're going to implement that exact plan and we're going to be just as good at it as you are. It's criminal. We need to find our own way of playing like we used to. Big, physical, ugly, dirty, smash people in the mouth team. And we always have players that on their day, in Robben, Duff, Hazard, Malouda, Lampard, game-winning players, ready to go, and knowing that if they get a chance and they take it, there's a very good chance Chelsea might win 1-0 or 2-0, because we know behind us we've got a rock-solid foundation of players that would kick their own granny to keep that football out of our own net. And we have absolutely got to find our own style of play. And I don't care if anyone likes it, I'm not interested. Chelsea were brought up for years and years and years on big physical players who knew how to play and experienced players with a know-how of, we've been there, seen it, done it, and got the T-shirt, and we know every situation and moment we're in, and we know how to react to that. And at the moment, you're playing with a lot of boys, a lot of kids, in some cases, who have never experienced any of this, and you're hoping to get the same results. It's an absolute madness. So where does this leave the Chelsea project? Personally, I see this term used a lot, and if you're going to call it that, I think it's dead in the water. You heard Liam Rosenior say before the Newcastle game that their transfer policy seems like it's going to change in the summer. I mean, I'm not being rude. By all means, buy some good young talent. All teams do that. It's an excellent way to be. You want the lifeblood of the team to continue, but you have to. We've been saying it forever. You have to bring in some experience with it. And I'm talking proper experience, not just Tosin, who's 28 playing in Fulham's reserves. You know, that's not experience. And then to make him captain of my football team, you know, come on, do me a favour. It's just ridiculous. Yeah, I think it needs a huge overhaul. It needs a mass overhaul. How they're going to do it, I don't know. They're going to have to ship out an awful lot of players. They've now got people on long contracts. Are they going to want to leave? You know, if you're someone like Wesley Fofana, I don't know what his contract situation is off the top of my head, but let's just say he's got 4 years left and a team comes in for him and they're going to pay him half the amount of money that he's getting at Chelsea. Why does he need to leave? This is what Sterling did. The trouble with this model is it's great when you're doing well because the players go, well, this is a great thing. This is really, really good. The moment it starts going the other way, and you've all heard the quotes from Enzo Fernandez. I think Chris will go into more detail on that in his note after me here. So I won't steal his thunder on that. But people will start to question things and will start to want out. They're not going to sit around for another 5 years hoping that Chelsea get good. They want to see progress now. Unless they can give assurances to Enzo, Palmer, obviously given it to Reece James, he's just signed a new contract. But Reece signed his contract based on the fact that he's always injured. So it's a no-brainer for him. But you look at these other guys that want to go and win stuff. You really have to let them know that you are a serious team. You can't just be messing around anymore. This whole idea that you can just do it the way that no one's ever done it before and you know best on everything simply won't wash anymore. Like I said to you before, by all means, bring in good young talent. But for goodness sake, when you're looking at that team last night, you got Josh Achimpong, Hato, Sarr, kids playing against some of the best footballers I've ever seen in modern football. Dembele, Katsvilia, Doué, that Malulu, he looks an absolute talent, that kid. Oh, wow. He looks really, really good. You are talking about the best attacking team I think I've ever seen at the Bridge for many, many years, many years. I can't think of a team that has just dismantled us. Oh, I'm forgetting Bacola, of course. They've literally pulled our pants down and given us a good old smack. And they just said, go on, get to bed, up you go. It's embarrassing. It was men against boys. It was just totally and utterly madness. And when you think Garnacho was bought for the same money, more or less, than PSG paid for Kvaratskhelia, it's just insane. It's insane. And as I've kind of previously said before, if you're going to spend 15 million on Garnacho, I can see that business all day long. But when you're paying 50 for Gittins, 50 million for Gittins, and I hate bashing this kid because he might end up being a good player. But you see him now, he's got no confidence. If he was to come to this team, even if he's fit against Everton at the weekend, what's he got? He hasn't had a good game for Chelsea yet. He scored one brilliant goal against Wolves in the League Cup. Other than that, he has done zero. And I don't like bashing people. I really don't. I don't enjoy doing that. But we paid 50 million for this boy. Where did they see 50 million quid when PSG are pulling their players out of the hat for the same money, but they're getting the top end player? Scary times. Scary times. We have an awful lot to do. I just say it now. Let's play devil's advocate and Liam Rosenior gets sacked in the summer. I don't think he will, by the way. I really don't see that happening. Let's just say he went. Who did Chelsea get in? They are not getting in the top end managers because they have no say in what goes on in this team. You have to promise somebody with massive experience that you have almost full control over what goes on, to what they eat, where they go, training schedule, the pre-season tour, the players they're going to buy, the players they're selling. You have to give people almost total control over that. And these owners will not do it. These sporting directors are too pig-headed, in my opinion. They will not do that. They've got to be paid their money. They're being paid to do something. So if you suddenly take all that away, then why are you needed anymore? You're not. And these are the facts. They're not needed to be at Chelsea if a manager comes in with basically, let's say, 80% control of what goes on. And that's our problem. That's where we are. We're going to get another manager who's going to be whoever, take your pick. It'll be another up-and-coming manager. Like I've heard today, let's get Alonso in. What's Alonso going to do? Like that Liam Rosenior can't or Enzo Maresca couldn't. Really. He's probably not that much better. I know Liverpool fans are crying out for him to come to Anfield. He might do really well at Liverpool because he knows the club. He knows what is expected. It's a different feeling. It's like Lampard. When he came to Chelsea, he didn't have to come back for that second time, but he came back because he loves Chelsea and he knew they were in a position where they needed him. They needed some stability and some help. He saw it through his own eyes back then, how poor it was and how poor it was run and how bad that squad was when you got porter cabins in the training ground because there's so many players in the squad. Now, that's been thinned out, I know. But in the summer, you're going to get back all these players from pre-season. There's bloody loads of them all around the world, all around the country on loan at places. They've all got to come back. You've got to sift through all that again, deal with that transfer business. It's a long way back. It's a long way back. I thought, and I hear people say this a lot. I mean, Chris has maybe mentioned it a couple of times. I don't know if he really means it or if he stands by it, that if we got 2 or 3 players, we'd be right there. I don't know. There are times when I see Chelsea play like the away leg at PSG, and I think that is an outstanding performance. Like, wow, 65 minutes, they were class. Defensively, shite. But everything else, brilliant. And then I see other days like yesterday, and I think we are to the moon away. It's a difficult one. I think that maybe the right players coming in with this current squad, and if nobody left, maybe you got a chance. Maybe you got a chance at sniffing around the Premier League. But I don't think the Champions League is where we're going to make our money with this current set of players. Unless people make a huge jump in the summer or in pre-season or into next season in terms of quality performance, I don't see us being that great. And I think people like Reece James, who, however good he is, and I think everybody realises he's probably the best right back in the world. He is so good. He never plays right back. He always plays in midfield. And you can't rely on him. So he's now missing for 8 weeks. Might miss the World Cup even. Who knows? So you can't rely on a player like that. Even though I love Reece James, he's my son's favourite player. He's so good at football. But he's no good to you if he plays 15 games a season. And that's the reality of it. For Chelsea to come back to the big time, and I mean consistently even compete for the Premier League on a regular basis, you need someone in charge who has that level of experience. Someone who's been in the game long enough, long in the tooth enough, and is prepared to stand by his decisions and say, I'm going to upset you today, you're not playing. I'm sorry, mate, but I've looked at it. This is the team I'm going for, and you have people on the bench that are grumbling. But I need you when you come on. I need you to show me what you've got. I need you to be part of this squad. But at the moment, this is my first 11 and my first 13 players, say, and you aren't part of that. But I want you to be part of that. So I need you to try harder. But long contracts and big wages will make you go, do you know what? Don't really need to do it. I'm quite happy here. I've got a 6-year contract. I'm on 125 grand a week. That'll do. Yeah, that's all right. Chelsea will still compete at a high level, just not the highest level. So I'll go around the world. I'll go, go to all these places. We'll go to Barcelona. We'll go to Madrid or Bayern Munich, perhaps, or wherever. We'll go and play all these lovely places, little trips here, little trips there. But effectively, we're going to be knocking around Champions League qualification, Europa League spots for forevermore if we don't change something at the end of the season. It's not going to change now. We've got Everton at the weekend. That game will come and go. How do I see that going? Not well. I think there's going to be a huge hangover from this game. I don't want to call out any of the players. I don't want to call out Hato, Sarr. I don't want to call out anybody that were thrown into the Lions Den last night against, I think, one of the best teams, if not the best team in Europe I've seen for a long, long time. So you cannot criticise those boys. Bad goal to concede, of course. The one over the top for Sarr doesn't deal with it very well. I'll see but I've got to say, Rob Sanchez, holy fuck, how do you not save that? It goes through your arm. That is just beyond me how he doesn't save it. Sorry. The second goal by Cola, I mean, it's an unbelievable finish. Again, the defending is so questionable, but the finish is great. And obviously the last one, messing around. Malulu just whacks it in the top corner yet again. It's clinical finishing, pure, precise, perfect, great finishing, and a team right at the top of their game. But I will say this, if you get at PSG, they are so fallible defensively. They are not great at the back. They are not. They've got good players, but they're not great at the back. And Chelsea could have had a couple of goals last night quite easily. I think they had some half-decent chances, throw the catalyst for most of it. So they are gettable. They give you a chance, but they're so good going forward. You're petrified every time they go. You think, oh, they're in again. Barcola ran the whole length of the field at one point, got right to the 6-yard box. I was like, this is like a FIFA goal. This is like FC 26. He literally ran the whole length, got to Sanchez, and I thought, if he scores, this is just going to be like walk-out time. That'd have been 3-0 in the first half. But Sanchez made a save on that occasion. But yeah, I'll leave it there. Chris, I know you want to discuss the Enzo Fernandez quotes and comments he said last night, and maybe go into detail on Everton and potentially the way you think the project is going or gone. And we'll be back after the Everton game. But Chris, it's over to you. God help us. Everton away has always been a great place for us to go. Jesus Christ.
Morning after, the night before for me, and sun is shining, but it doesn't feel like anything else is particularly bright in the world of Chelsea. I've got a very good friend actually coming to stay for a couple of days, and he is a big Arsenal fan. He's going to want to talk about football, isn't he? Which I will not want to. Jack, if you're listening to this, take it easy on me. But talk about sort of the tale of two clubs right now in such different positions. Obviously, we have been the other way around. We've been where Arsenal have been. You know, it seems like a long time ago now, but it isn't so long ago. And Arsenal were in the position we're in, but just the fortunes and I guess the general picture of those two clubs just couldn't feel more different right now. And I know I alluded to this last night in my voice note, but what a terrible 6 days it's been for us. It's just, when you think about the fact we were off the back of that really good win at Villa, a win at Wrexham, and then a really good hour in Paris where anything felt possible at that point, 6 days on, and we're in crisis mode, aren't we? We're in a little bit in crisis mode, and it does feel like, certainly under Clear Lake's ownership, we've hit a new low. That's how I'm feeling about things. I'm going to bring Declan in briefly now, because Declan has been on the show before and sent us a really good voice note last night about his feelings and, I guess, frustrations about the management situation and what the position that Chelsea have put themselves in. Joe and I alluded it to earlier, but I think Declan puts it really well here. So, Declan, over to you.
I think the main thing I would focus on is, if you keep hiring B team managers, you're going to keep getting B team results. I don't think Thomas Tuchel gets beaten 8-2 on aggregate with that team. We can talk about the players and talk about the experience. They had a bunch of young players out there today as well. They've got players out there who are 25 and under. You don't get beaten 8-2 with Thomas Tuchel in charge of this team. I suppose the ownership will point to the fact that, Club World Cup champions, exciting young squad, blah, blah, blah. They probably have made some money on their investment, although I do think a bit of a deep dive on that is probably needed at some point to see whether that is really the case or not. But in the here and now, you're never going to get past this level with this level of manager. I just don't see that changing anytime soon, because an elite manager will want his own players. An elite manager will want a say in how he sets up. An elite manager will be a bit too much for them and their multiple sporting directors. And so until that model breaks, I can't see us changing. And if we don't change, nothing will change in terms of the results. Probably, in a way, tonight might actually, maybe, hopefully, have broken through a little bit and potentially humbled the ownership. But yeah, I'm not sure. I think that we scrape fifth. I think that I'd like to hope we win the FA Cup, but let's wait and see. And then we end up in the same position in August, September. Let's wait and see. But yeah, tonight is, I think, a reminder of, people might like Rossini, people might think he's a nice guy, people might be glad for the change after Maresca, but yeah, we are not a team that can really challenge because we do not have an elite manager, and that is, unfortunately, the bare facts of it. Anyway, onwards and upwards, and let's move on.
Great points from Declan there. And I think if I wind you back to those who remember the podcast, which I think was episode 100, when Maresca got sacked on New Year's Day, wasn't it? And obviously Rossini at that point was one of the favourites. And one of the things I warned against with Rossini, it was almost the reason, fundamentally, I really didn't think he'd be a great fit at that point, was my worry about when things go wrong, which of course inevitably at some point they would. He started brilliantly, and again, I'm not going to backtrack on things I've said. I do like him, and I think he's got us playing some really good football at times. But the big worry is when things go wrong, in much the same way as Graham Potter, who I mentioned earlier, and Maresca himself, he doesn't have in his back pocket either of the two things that would really help him right now. One of which would be just experience and being that kind of elite manager that just buys you more time. I'm not even saying like a Jose Mourinho, like an Unai Emery, for example. If this is Unai Emery, he's got the experience where he can come out and say, look, he's going to carry the respect of what he's done in the past and be able to talk about plans for the summer. And he just probably buys himself a little bit more favour because of the experience he's got. And there's loads of other managers I could mention there, but clearly someone with experience. He doesn't have that. And then the other thing he doesn't have is he doesn't have that connection to Chelsea as a club and as a fan base that would also kind of carry him a little bit of favour at this point. It was one of the reasons that my choice, I think, was certainly one of the people I liked was Cesc Fabregas. So Fabregas is obviously very similar to Rossini, really, in where he is in his management career. doing a fantastic job by all accounts at Como. So as a fit would be pretty similar to Rosini on paper. A risk, definitely not experienced at this level, which is what we've all been talking about earlier. But it says Fabregas. Chelsea fans absolutely love him. He's got one of the best chants that we've had at Chelsea in the last 20 years. Even after a defeat like that last night, I think there's a good portion of the fan base that would stick around, would stick by him and say, you've got to back Fabregas in the summer. Chelsea have got to back Cesc this summer. Whereas I think a lot of the fan base are already looking at the summer thinking, do we back Rosini full stop? And I just think that the club themselves put themselves in this position and Liam Rosini in this position. And it's exactly what we said on the podcast at that point was it's a risky appointment, but it's a risky appointment for themselves because there's no excuse or backtrack because the two obvious things you could have done is bring in an experience or a Chelsea man. They haven't done that. And if things start to go wrong, and it's early days, win the next few games and this is football. That's the great thing about it. Things move on really quickly. But at this point of time, it's feeling pretty toxic. And actually, most of it is directed away from Rosini. It's above him. And rightly so, because he's been put in this position, but it isn't great. Excuse me. Oh, the Enzo Fernandez quotes. So for those who haven't seen, he was asked after the game about whether he would be at Chelsea next season. And his direct quote is, I don't know. There are 8 games left and the FA Cup. There's the World Cup and then we'll see. So, I mean, he couldn't have dodged the question much more if he liked. But the fact that he's named the number of games in his head suggests a countdown of sorts is going on in his mind, doesn't it? This is something I did predict 12 months ago. I did call this and say that I always had this feeling with Enzo Fernandez that he wasn't going to be at Chelsea forever. And it had the feeling of someone that Real Madrid or PSG would be looking at. He just looks like that sort of player to me for those guys. Let's see what happens in the summer. I think the one thing about Chelsea is they'll have to demand a big fee for him. Out of all of our really elite players, probably the one who's had the most consistent season this year. Not saying that I think Caicedo reached real heights, probably the first half of the season, but has dipped. Enzo's been pretty consistent throughout. He's obviously a World Cup winner, starts for Argentina. We spent, 120 odd million on him, I think it was. You've got to be thinking Chelsea want to demand at least 80 to 100 million back to let him even consider letting him go. You'd think they'd want 100, wouldn't you? And then the question really is, do the likes of PSG or Real Madrid have that kind of money to spend on a player? I'm not sure. Would someone like Man City look at him in the summer, maybe, or Man United? That, again, I think the market is wide open in terms of clubs. Liverpool as well. Obviously spent a lot of money this summer. They wanted him initially and Chelsea got him. I think anything is open and I don't think this model will care who they sell to. I think under Roman, there would have been a bit more like, nah, we're not selling to our rivals, absolutely no question. I don't think that would be the case, to be honest. I think money talks at the club, and I think we've seen that really with letting players go to Arsenal and the like. So, and obviously Mount to Man United. So, one to watch in the summer. I think we might be on the cusp of seeing Enzo leave the club, but let's wait and see. If we do see him go, obviously Chelsea have to replace him. And my argument would be they have to replace him with a different profile and react to the fact that the Premier League itself is a very physical league. The teams dominating right now, like Arsenal, have height, they have dominance in the area. And if Chelsea don't look to do the same, then yeah, I think we are kicking the can down the road. Let's face it, at this moment in time, do you trust these sporting owners to spend that money in the right area? No, we don't. Let's face it. The other question, of course, is it the start of an exodus of players with Enzo leaving? I think my message right now would be probably not. I wouldn't be too worried about that. It's not a great sign, but, players leave clubs. That is what happens. And then I was thinking about this ahead of this note, and I was like, do you know what, though? I basically counted out 7 players outside of Enzo that I would call, like, untouchables that we wouldn't want to sell. Only 7. and I'll go through them. And there might be others. Again, email us at hello@1905podcast if you think I've missed someone obvious. But I think of the current squad, the unsaleables to me are these guys. And I'll tell you where I think they are. Reece James, obviously unsellable, has just signed a new contract, so he's going nowhere. I think Casado, would I worry about him leaving right now? No, not yet. But I think he'll want to see progress, but not this summer. I don't think that happens. Cole Palmer, obviously. Cole, again, the quiet truth on Cole, and this is going to sound harsh, how many really good games has Cole Palmer had in the last 12 to 14 months now? And we are talking about that length of time. And of course, injury has played a massive part this season for him. I think exhaustion has probably played a big part as well, at points maybe last season. But Cole, who I absolutely love, and by the way, I'd be building this club around Cole Palmer, so I'm not saying anything about anything other than that, but his consistency has gone. And you see him in these big games against PSG, and they'd be looking at him thinking, this is a different player to the one that we played against in the summer. He's not moving right. There's the magic is not there at the moment with Palmer. And the reason I think this is relevant is I don't think there would be a big market for him in the amount of money that Chelsea would want. Chelsea would want probably a world record fee. So that's what, over 130 odd million for him. And I don't know if there's a market for Cole Palmer on his current form right now. So I'm not worried about Palmer until he starts playing brilliantly again. And then if he's having the season of his life and Chelsea is still disappointing on the pitch, which again, maybe those two things don't go hand in hand, let's face it, then I worry. But at this moment in time, I'm not sure I'm particularly worried. João Pedro is my fourth untouchable. I think he actually looks probably the most happy and engaged of everyone. And Joe's absolutely right. He was the one carrying the fight, wasn't he, last night? Estevao is another. Obviously, he's very new. He's very young. I'm not worried about him right now. Again, he needs to see progress, but I think I'd be more worried about that in a couple of years. I think for Levi Colwill, coming back for injury, I think Enzo Fernandez leaving perhaps creates an opportunity for him. I think you look at the vice captain position and think that Colwill would probably be the natural person to maybe stand up and go into the area, being a Cobham boy like Reece, playing the centre back. I think it's an opportunity for him if he can come back and be the player he was before injury. And then the final one on my list is Cucurella. And I put him in the maybe category, actually. He turns 28 this summer. He signed a new contract last summer, but it was only a salary increase. It wasn't an extension in terms of his time at the club. And you've got to be looking at him and thinking, if you're his agents at 28, you're entering that point where you've got maybe one last big move, one last really big contract. So it's either at Chelsea, but remember, Chelsea's wages are capped, but also highly incentivized as well. So if Chelsea don't get in the Champions League, worth remembering that a lot of this squad will effectively get a pay cut in the summer, which is not something they'd have at a lot of other clubs. And maybe Cucurella would be looking at that in the summer and thinking, if there are big clubs in for him, it would be the right time for him to look at a move as well. And again, he's not going to command at 28 a huge fee, I don't think. Certainly not. We paid 60 odd million for him. I think Chelsea wouldn't get certainly much more than that, if that, for him in this current market. So he'd be the only other one I'd be a little bit nervous about right now of my list of 8. But outside of that, I don't think there's anyone else in the squad that if they were to leave in the summer, I'd really shed a massive tear over. I might have missed someone, but I don't think I have. So Enzo Fernandez leaving, if it happens, honestly, it'd be very sad. I'd be less concerned if I felt that Chelsea could spend the money in the right way, but, let's wait and see. And a lot can happen between now and then. Who knows? It could also be agent talk and part of a plan to get a new contract to Chelsea. We just don't know. Let's finish with a bit more on Everton then. So Everton themselves, they're only 5 points behind Chelsea in the league, by the way. That surprised me as I looked this up. So Chelsea obviously sick. Only 3 points behind Aston Villa, who are in 4th, and 1 point behind Liverpool in 5th. There's 8 games left in the league. Every game's important. This one feels very, very important. Everton obviously down in 8th, only 5 points behind us, as I just said. Their home form, actually, in the new stadium hasn't been great. It's sort of been the classic challenge, I think, that you often see where teams move to a new stadium, particularly when they've come from somewhere that has been a bit of a fortress at times, particularly against Chelsea, let's face it, at Goodison. Actually, their home form is worse than their away. They've picked up 19 points at home versus 24 on the road. They've won 5 out of their 15 home games and actually have a -1 goal difference. So it's a place that Chelsea should be glad that we're not going to Goodison. Let's just say that. But it's Everton, and they never make life easy for us away from home. I looked at Everton's recent form, and they are consistently inconsistent, much like Chelsea. Obviously lost 2-0 to Arsenal last time out. Before that, a 2-0 home win against Burnley, and that really good 3-2 away win at Newcastle. And then before that, had home defeats, 1-0 to Man United and 2-1 to Bournemouth. So 2 wins in the last 5, 3 defeats. Much like Chelsea, you don't really know what you're going to get from Everton. There don't tend to be a huge number of goals in their games. Games tend to be tight. And with Chelsea, it really comes down to all of those details, doesn't it? And I mentioned it in my pod last night, but I mean, the number of sloppy goals Chelsea are giving away at the moment is, laughable. Let's face it. The number of mistakes leading to goals is a mess, and some of that is clearly on the players, but quite a lot of it has to be on Rosenior and how he's setting them up as well. They just have to fix it. How do I feel about the game? It's a Saturday night game as well. That adds always an extra element when you're away from home. Chelsea need to win. Chelsea need to win. And I don't know if we can at the moment, but that's because I'm feeling really down after the last week. I don't know. Let's do a prediction. Chelsea will win the game 2-1. João Pedro and Cole Palmer penalty. You heard it here first, and we'll go into the international break on a high. I'm going to leave you with that positive because every little thing's just got to be all right, hasn't it? See you next time. Those were the Chelsea notes for this week. If you enjoyed the podcast, do us a favour and share it with a fellow Blue. And we'd love to hear your thoughts, so leave us a review wherever you're listening. Wherever you may be, stay carefree, and remember, every little thing's gonna be alright.